Welcome to the Dancing Dialogues. I'm Nikita Krishnan, a professional belly dancing artist and your host for this show. Dance is more than just what you see on the stage. It's the sweat and hard work behind every dance performance, untold stories, and dedication of dancers. Through this podcast, we bring you those behind the scenes moments, connecting you with dancers' journey that any videos or posts can't. So let's go beyond the spotlight and truly experience the world of dance together. From Bharatnatyam to belly dance, from research economist to full time artist, Debapriya Das has carved her own path through rhythm and resilience. Her work bridges cultures, telling stories that are socially relevant yet true to the spirit of the East. Today, she stands as one of India's leading voices in Oriental dance, redefining how we see belly dance in the contemporary world. This is her journey, this is her dialogue. Dear Devapriya, it's a delight to have you on our podcast. I would like to first start off by talking about your dancing journey. So you can just talk about how you started off with your dance and how like how you lean towards Oriental dancing more. And before we actually talk about Oriental dancing, I would like you to explain what Oriental dancing is, because this is gonna be for the general dance enthusiasts, so they may not know what Oriental dancing is. So let's go.
Firstly, thank you so much, Nikita, for inviting me to the podcast. And this is such a fantastic initiative that you've taken. And all the very best to you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm super excited to be here and speak to you. Okay, so first starting with what is Oriental dance? Oriental dance, I think the name is super confusing.
It's probably super confusing for us because it was coined by Europeans.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I think because also the podcast is for the general public, right? Oriental dance, belly dance. Belly dance is something that most people know of. But what the dance is all about, the dance, I feel it's a collection of movement languages which come from different countries in North Africa, countries in the Khalij, countries a little east of the Khalij also. It's the influence of traditional dances, folk dances from a lot of these countries. Right. They come together and this vocabulary, which is very, very popular, has come up, and that's what is belly dance. But then belly dance typically is, there are so many dances which can come under this, umbrella term belly dance. They are traditional, they are folk, they are classical, like it's all kind. So yeah, and then there is of course belly dance, because the term is also a little not so positive, I would say.
Yeah, thanks to our
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Bollywood culture.
And then there is Oriental, right? So when you say Oriental dance, you again feel like, so what is Oriental dance? Because Oriental also as a term, it anything in the West, but then of course we have to understand West to what, right? So the Orient is a really, really big region. Like it's a huge geographical area. So dancers from, let's say, Far East, like China, Japan, all of them, they are also Oriental dance, right?
For us, they are
Exactly,
like
for
to the,
us,
yeah.
exactly. So even the term Oriental dance, I feel, is also confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just for the public and some people who probably have never gotten in touch with these kind of art forms. Belly dance, Oriental dance, and of course there are much more complicated terms which are very rooted to the place they are coming from. Yeah, that would be what is Oriental dance.
I know you've also been a Bharatnatyam dancer, since your formative years. So I would want you to start off by, talking about your journey when you were a kid and how you transitioned into a
Yes.
full-time dancer.
I started dancing when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I started with Bharatanatyam. My training started in Calcutta, and then my father had a transferable job, so we moved to Bombay. And in Bombay, I remember took us a few months to sort of, I was maybe in 7th standard, yeah, 7th standard. It took us a few months to sort of adjust, and I remember from my house to my school, I used to stay in Andheri West, and my school was in Santa Cruz West. So in that journey, I used to cross Juhu, and I would see this big dance school called Nalanda Dance Research Center. And I would be like, oh my God, what is this really big school? And I remember there used to be this huge Nataraja in front of the door. And coincidentally, it was next to Amitabh Bachchan's house. So it was very easy to sort of know. And I remember coming to my mother and telling her, I want to enroll in that school. And I think that's how I went to Nalanda Dance Research Center, and I studied there till I was 18. So Bharatanatyam was, I mean, even in those 10 years, it was very rigorous. I started performing when I was probably 10, 9
Wow.
or 10. And but even during those 10 years, even though the training was very rigorous, and it never crossed my mind or even my parents' mind that maybe dance is something that I would like to take up
Pursue,
and
yeah.
study further. It was just that thought. It's not like I know personally of colleagues and friends and other professionals who were taking up performance art as a living is not something that is very supported, right?
Yeah.
So mine was, the thought only didn't come.
Yeah.
So it's being supported and not being supported is a very far away thing. Just that approach, the thought of, okay, you can also do this,
Yeah.
even that wasn't there. But my parents, they were the ones who took me to dance class. My mother was very interested in my dancing. I think she also learned adavos with me. She learned how to
Wow.
say it so that her daughter would come home and practice, right? So they were very invested. Just like how they were invested in my studies, they were also very, very invested in my dance. But yeah, it's very funny to think that even though they were so invested, it's just the thought of taking it up professionally just never crossed their mind. After that, I moved back to Calcutta for my graduation. And during that time, during my graduation and my post graduation, I was doing a lot of dancing, but very different kind of dancing. And I was also at a phase where I did not like Bharatanatyam. I did not like classical dancing.
Oh, okay.
And but I had to go. Like, I remember back in Bombay, all my school friends, they would go to Shamak's summer camp, and they would
Right.
dance all very cool Bollywood songs. And I was doing a Jatiswaram or a Shabdam, and sticking to the classical art. And of course, when you are a kid, so many things are impressionable. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. And I
But
would.
do you look back and thank yourself?
Oh,
thank,
absolutely. Oh, my
for
goodness.
that
Oh, my
dedication,
Absolutely. I
around
am
that.
so glad that I remember once coming and telling my mum that I want to go to Shamak Dawar's classes.
Yeah.
And she said, you quietly finish this. But I did go. I did go to Summer Funk, and it was a lot of fun. I think it's a very different mindset, and of course, when you're among friends who are
Yeah.
doing different things, you also want to do those things. And obviously, classical arts is it's not very strict. It's strict. It also depends on how it is kind of taught,
Right, yeah.
And for kids, if it is, and especially for me, the way it was taught, sometimes I would be like, okay, this is too restrictive. And you didn't even have sort of a door or a window to break out, right?
Right.
So I remember I was actually once reprimanded that I started missing a few classes because I had this show in school and it was a Bollywood show. And yeah, I was said that, oh, you're doing that, but you're not doing this. And you know, those things leave an impression. Like, of course, they were all said with all the good intentions, but how you say it to an impressionable child and also to adults, it
Right.
really matters
Yeah.
because it stays back. Like I was only 13 and I remember everything. I
Yeah.
remember how one had to take precedence over the other. So, so yeah, coming back after I left Bombay, I came in college. I was doing a lot of different kinds of things. There were college competitions. I was part of the university troupe, and we used to go to all India competitions, and we won quite a few of them.
Wow.
And we used to do it. Used to be our own choreographies.
Back in school.
Back in this was back in college.
Oh, yeah.
In Calcutta, we used to just make up our own choreographies. I remember as a team, we would sit and we would watch Dance India dance, and we were like, oh, you know, we can do this, we can do this.
That was the only medium, you know, we could
yes,
actually
yes.
see dance.
And very interesting, and we did a lot on different kinds of things. Like we wanted to do contemporary, but we had no idea what contemporary was. But given that I had passed dance training, so there was so at that point of time I didn't realize those things, but once you've been trained, it's there in the body. Yours is a trained body, so you can still approach different kind of dances from a very knowledgeable space. So I think that was happening in college, and exploring different kinds of things. I think I remember one of the summer vacations I even decided to be part of a Bollywood dance troupe. It was a professional Bollywood dance troupe, and we were actually dancing for the Bengali film industry, and
wow,
you know,
okay.
all of those things. I really did not like it. I did not like it one bit.
Really?
I did not like it one bit, and
What is it that you did not
very
enjoy?
restrictive.
Really?
Yeah, because so again, I was 18 and I was doing it for my summer vacations. I didn't want to go and work for a company and work on Excel. So I said, hey, I'm going to join a Bollywood dance troupe. So I went ahead, I auditioned and I got selected. And then, so the thing is, there are shows. It's a show-based thing. So I remember there was this, I think, it was a reality show that was
Okay.
happening, and I was a part of it. I was part of the choreographers team, and I remember the shooting. I didn't really like it because there was just so much. There were different kinds of things that was happening, and I also wanted to go home, and I didn't want to do this, and it was the same kind of dancing. I didn't. It was just like a summer thing for me. I didn't think so much about it. But I very well know the fact that that feeling that I got wasn't very nice. So then I decided, yeah, maybe not. And then there were kids of my age who wanted to do it full time. Like they were not going to college, they were not studying, and this was their main thing. So that sort of, it was very surprising to me.
Yeah, because again, we are all so conditioned
Yeah.
to be, you know, pursuing engineering
Yes,
or
absolutely.
even becoming a doctor, right? Like
Absolutely, absolutely.
And, okay.
So
Right now, I think now it's definitely gotten a lot better because there's so many n number of streams that one can pursue. But yeah, I mean, in our times, the 90s, we never had that option.
absolutely.
But that's so like surprising to know that there were people pursuing that full
Of
time.
course, there was always people pursuing,
Yeah.
right? And that conditioning, because for me, when I saw my friends, colleagues who they would come to rehearsal, so I would come from college. They were there the entire time, and then to me, and I would think that, so you don't go to college, this is what you did after your 12th, which is good. But I also feel that, you know, at that age, because now I'm at a space where a lot of young adults, they come to me and they say that, oh, you know, we want to take up belly dancing, or we want to take up dancing as a career. I always tell them two things, that you know, after you finish your school, it's very important to go get that degree.
Right.
Not it, because it's not about the degree. It's actually not about what you're studying and whether you're getting a BTech, whether you're getting a BSc, whether you're getting a bachelor's in architecture. It's not about the degree, but I think there are these life skills that college teaches you, which is so important,
so true. Yeah.
right?
So true.
It gives it's a whole rounded thing, and then when individuals don't get to experience it, I feel the approach becomes very different, right?
Yeah.
And I only say this from my experience. I have a master's in economics. I'm trained as a researcher, so my approach to dancing is very, very different. So, and I think I would attribute a 95% of my attitude towards dancing comes from how I have been trained as an economist.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's I may not be using any of those like studying things,
Right.
But it's just how to approach a problem, how to think differently. That atmosphere gives you, it's very different. So
Yeah.
I feel your college is very important. So again, going back, so when I met these kids, and it was very surprising to me that they don't go to college. Back then I didn't think too much about it, but right now when kids do come up, I say that you can study dance. If you don't want to study dance, just enroll into a like bachelor's of arts or anything.
Yeah.
Go to college. It's not about topping your stream. It's not about getting a job. It's not about any of those things. But it's about something else. It's about life skills which you can only learn at a certain age in a certain space with
Yeah.
with the people of the same age, because everybody is trying to figure out life, right? You need to have those
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah, I think that's very important what you mentioned, that you need a formal education even if you want to like take up dancing as your full time. I think it was the same for me. I never thought I would take up dancing as a full time. And also from the background that I come from, education was very important. No matter like what you do, like you had to like complete a bachelor's, right? So I'm also very grateful that I did my bachelor's, and then because like you told that the skills that you have, like that you can apply into your dance business. I'm really grateful for that education as well.
Absolutely.
Like I see a lot of kids now getting inspired because of Bollywood, and every other day there's a new song that's being released and been trending, and they get accustomed to that. They don't really want to pursue a formal dance education. Like you said that the Bharatnatyam that you learned really like left a very strong impression in you. I mean, be it anything, right? Like a discipline. That I feel is lacking in today's kids, because in this real content world where even our attention span is deteriorating like crazy. Even the kids feel like, I feel like they're very impatient. They just want to like learn something and then just dance to it and gain views and stuff, but nobody actually wants to really dedicate their time into learning anything as a skill. So what would you like to say to the kids, and how the formal education really shaped you today as a dancer?
Uh, it's not only kids.
Yeah. It's not only
It's not
kids.
only
Yes.
kids. I think we're living in a very interesting time, because the way everything is very fast consumption. I want to do this so that I can do this.
Yeah.
It's not like I want to do this because I want to do this. It's so that, right? Because when I went for Bharatanatyam, I just wanted to learn Bharatanatyam. Which is again going back to the thing, there's no thought of, okay, I want to take it up professionally.
Right.
You go to a class, whether you go to painting class, whether you go to music class, whether you go to a dance class, or whether you go to a language class, you're doing it because you're doing it. There is no so that. right now, every workshop I am going so that I can shoot a 15-second video and I will
Yes.
immediately put it up. Yeah, our world has become 9:16,
Validation.
and it's an illusion. I keep telling this to all my dancers, whether they're advanced, whether they're beginners. Um, it's great to dance for 9:16, but that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's not what it is, because you're not going to be always dancing for 9:16 for that frame. You will have to come out of it and one day dance in this space. Then what is going to
True.
happen to you? Or you have to just dance in your living room, or you have to dance at a stadium, or whatever, right? Or you just have to dance, right? You don't need. I have to do this so because of this. You don't need that. I think number one is that attitude, and this is for everything.
Yeah.
This is for and it's not new. Like, for example, now I think about it. After I finished my bachelor's in economics, I had two options. I had actually many options. So my idea was, I want to do this because I will get a job very fast, right? So that attitude is there. Yeah, that and it isn't wrong all the time, because sometimes you want to do something because you have a higher goal. Like, for example, I wanted to become financially independent very early on in my career. So I realized that, okay, if I go to this particular college and I do a master's in economics, I know for a fact, and because the college has 100% recruitment, I know I'm going to get placed. I know I'm going to get a job.
Right.
Similarly with the MBAs, right? Why do we aim for the IIMs or the top skills? Because they have almost like a 98% placement record. So it's not like you want to do an MBA in marketing. I'm sure there are people who want to do an MBA in marketing, and really, like, those are the people I'm like, wow, amazing, right? But coming back, even I have been a part of this race. But I think when I was doing my master's in economics, I met so many of my friends who were doing the master's because they loved economics so much and they were so passionate about it. And it was there I learned that you could pursue something without actually thinking about the next step. If you pursue something with that, because I love doing this, because I love studying, because I love reading about the theory, because I love sitting and solving the problem, if you're in here, the next part actually clears out on its own.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about the next part. So I think it's an attitude thing, right? And what social media has done probably is, because we all have that, we all have, oh no, I want to go and get, pick up, let's say, computer engineering rather than, let's say, civil engineering, because the placement record over there is higher than this, right? So you may not like both.
Yeah.
Most of the times you don't like both. But if we just did what we wanted to do, I think that second part would have been easier. And coming back to what social media has done is, it has actually sort of capitalized on that emotion of us. And I think as humans, we all have it. Like, all of us have done it, right? I have done this so that I can get here. It's the most human thing to do.
Yeah.
But till what extent? Like, you also have to realize these things. You have to
Yeah.
sort of step back and you have to think that, okay, but to what extent? And if you are an impressionable teenager, adult, there should be someone to sort of tell you, okay, fine, you want to put up a reel with 4 million views, great. Then you become a content creator, great. Then you do this, great. Then you do that. Do you need to learn dance to do all of these things? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Coming back, do you want to be a dancer? Because then it's two different professions, right? It's content creation and dancing. They're two different things. So I would just say that do what you want to do, But think about what you want to do. Are you only doing this so that you can put out that reel? Great, do it if that satisfies you. But know that if you really want to learn dancing, then that's not what it is. It is completely something else, like completely. And I
Yes.
think that understanding is
Also
sort
a
of
choice that, you know, when you pursue dancing full time, the results are very slow.
oh,
Very slow.
they are negligible,
Yeah. It'll take years to build
or
something.
it may not build.
Yeah.
Like for example, what I mean it may not build is you may have started off your journey thinking I want to reach from point A to point B. Point B will probably never happen for you, but what you've done is you've opened up A bar, A double bar, A triple bar, you have opened up a lot of other paths which at that point of time in your life you were not aware of.
Right.
So it's not linear, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's why I think it's like, you know, there's a choice, right? Like if you want to become a content, of course, content creating is also not easy, but
Very difficult. Oh
very
my God,
difficult.
very.
Yes, very difficult. But I think comparatively, a dancer's journey is always going to be very tough. So the choice between content creation and dancing, like whichever, you know, makes up your validation, like
yeah, whatever works for you, I think,
So I
yeah.
think that's
Very
like,
important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
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 important.
important.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? We all, again, as humans, not even humans, everyone wants validation. But again, we want to step back and we want to think about that till what extent do
Yep.
we want that, right? How is it? It is helping me in this part of my emotional security, insecurity, whatever. And then I want to think about that why is that happening? And once I think of the why, I want to there is actually no solving. Once you know the why, you have solved it actually. I think what most of us don't realize is that why do I want that instant gratification, putting up that that thing, that looking at the likes, at the views. Why do I need it? Yeah, of course it's great. It's great to have your reel go viral. It's great, so many people who you have never met is behind that little phone and saying lovely things and also like horrible things. Why?
I see the economist in you like talking right now.
Like why do you want to? Because actually when you've answered that why, then you will go back and you'll realize that, hey, okay, yeah, probably not, right?
I think as you grow old,
Yeah.
right, that
Yeah.
the wisdom comes in. You
So
know,
that's the
because-
thing. But it should come.
Yeah.
The potential problem I think we are facing is it's not there, and I know it's very easy to say these things, but I think that's the work we all want to do. That why do we do it? And then once we have answered that why, we've actually kind of solved it. And then but I like it, and it can just be that.
Yeah.
But it's like liking to what extent? Like, yes, you like ice creams. Are you going to have 20 of them?
Yeah, true that.
It's also that.
But I also think because I also started my career in the very early 20s, my goal was very different comparatively to what my goals are now.
Yeah.
You know, even at that point when I was in my early 20s, I wanted instant gratification. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to make reels. I wanted to create content. Like,
course,
I like that attention.
yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, I can say that I'm growing older. I'm also realizing that the goals that I had were very shallow. Like, I want to like dive
No, don't
deep
ever
now.
say that. Don't ever say that. Nothing is shallow, because 15 years down the line, again we'll say, oh, the goals I
Yeah.
had were so shallow. Like, No, it's not. It's
Yeah,
it's
but
just
I
it's
feel
the
like
time.
yeah, but I feel like now I can really understand, or like I, there is a desire in within me that I want to dive deep into whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like even be it Oriental dancing.
Right.
At that point, I really didn't know Oriental dancing. I was just doing what my teachers had taught me.
Right.
I never questioned why. But now, like I want to question like anything that I'm studying, right? Like I have that curiosity that I want to like understand the culture, the stories behind it. So that depth I think will only come once you
Yeah, it
probably
takes yeah, it
grow a
takes
little
time.
bit. Yeah, it
Yeah.
takes time.
Everything takes time.
Yeah. Dancers, if you're looking for good quality belly dance props and wear, check out Ballerina's Closet, my own boutique. We've got hip scarves, silk veils, fan veils, and comfy flattering dance wear, all designed for dancers like us. Enjoy 10% off with the code SHEMI10. So, yeah, Devapriya, I just wanted to know that you took up Oriental dancing now as your full-time career. So, how that transition happened to you? And also I want you to also point out whether this dance career is really lucrative, or would you advise dancers to take this up full time?
Wow. I took up Oriental full time in 2018. That's when I put down my papers, and but I started doing Oriental dance. I remember my first class was in 2012.
Was it in Bangalore?
It was in Bangalore, yes. My office used to be close to Raj Bhavan in Bangalore.
Oh, okay.
And I used to walk down Cunningham Road, and there used to be Allianz Francaise, and there used to be classes there. So and also at that point of time, I had just moved to Bangalore with my first job, and I realized that, so 5 years back in college, I wasn't training in dance. So here is the thing, connecting back to what I was saying, I love dancing. There is no why to it.
Yeah.
There is no, I love dancing because of this. There is no because. I love dancing.
You loved movement. You loved enjoying.
You put me in a class, it's the happiest place. Whether there is no thought of whether I'm doing it well, not doing it well is not even in the question. I like it so much that I would probably look like the most, I don't know, the teacher's doing something and I'm doing something completely different, but I'm really having fun. So I missed that during my bachelor's and my master's. I came to Bangalore and I enrolled myself in all possible classes. I was doing contemporary dance, I enrolled myself in Kathak, I went back to Bharatanatyam, and then I enrolled myself in ballet, and then ballet dance happened to be also one of them. So that's what was in 2012 when I was doing 500 different things. But I think Oriental dance sort of stuck on. And
anything specific? Like, was it like something that inspired
I
you
think
to take
there
up?
are multiple things. First was a sense of disillusion. No, I'll tell you why. We didn't know what Oriental dancing was or where I was going. I don't think we knew what the dancing was. So the dancing constituted of doing hip work. Yeah?
Right.
So when you look at dance, you can take out just the movement and leave everything out of it. That's not the dance. That's just a bunch of movements stuck together, right? So I learned my initial, so I learned it like that. And because it was just movements and because I've had dance training, I thought I was really good. I was in a, it was like a thing that, oh my God, I'm quite good at it. I would sit in front of my mirror, nobody to tell me anything. I would look at myself like, this looks good. I have no context of anything, yeah. But within a few months, I realized, hey, it can't be this easy. It is not possible that that you learn a new thing and you become good at it. There is no way that can happen. Whatever you do, absolutely no way. And because again, I had prior dance experience,
Right.
I knew that this is not what it is. So I think it was so many things put together, a sense of disillusionment, a sense of thinking, a sense of ego that, oh, because you have done other things, you think you're good at it, but there is nobody to sort of correct. Nobody was there to correct me. I thought what I wanted to think at the age of 23. It was that, and then also then when I realized it on my own within a year. Thank God, it only took me a year to realize it. I really, because sometimes I see individuals who still haven't realized it, and I want to tell them, don't do the same mistakes. But then I wanted, then there was that curiosity. Okay, then what is it? And then you have to do the work on your own, because you don't have a teacher. You don't know where to start from, right? The art is not yours. Understanding that itself has taken so many years. So many
Yeah, I think
years,
it must
right?
have been so hard that time because
Very.
there was very few resources.
Very
that
few
we had, yeah.
resources. Again, I will always go back to my training in dance, in my education system, to identify what is good for me and what is not good for me. So I'm not going to give a generic statement ki she's good, he's not good, she's not good. It's about you, right? So I identified that at that point of time, what I needed was not available in my near vicinity. That's a skill. And so these are, so again, that's the thing. When you walk into any class, it should take you a few sessions to identify whether this is working for you or not, whether this is what you want.
Right.
There are students who don't realize this, and then suddenly years have passed, and then you realize that, oh my God, I've not learned anything. And
Yeah.
then you suddenly go to another place and you realize this is what it is. I have no idea about it, and we probably don't have an idea about it is because we haven't gone back and questioned, and we haven't seen enough or done enough or whatever it is to identify what is good and what is not good for yourself, of course. So again, because I draw from my past experiences and I identified it, that led me to actually have really write down my questions and think about, okay, what is it that I want to do with this dance? And because there was absolutely no
Right.
resource available, then you start thinking, okay, is it available in Bangalore? No. Is it available in India? Maybe not. Okay, then think beyond that. And that's how you start, increasing those borders. And you will go to 10 incorrect resources till you find the right one. Be ready for it. Because nobody is there to tell you anything. It is your journey. And you have to go to wrong resources. It's a life skill.
Yeah, I
Go
think to learn like what
Yes.
exactly you want.
Yes, you
Yeah.
will have to have a million of wrong choices to figure out, oh my God, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Those were actually not wrong choices. Those were things which every time I saw something, every time I went to a class, I would tell myself, I would not do this, I would not do this, I would not do this, I would not do this. Cut back to 10 years. Now I know what I want to do, and now, maybe now I know, like tomorrow I don't know. But actually, it's not like I know what I want to do, I exactly know what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that was my journey, and I think that curiosity, that travel, that learning, the good experiences, not so good experiences. After a certain point, I realized I'm too deep in it. Like too deep in it, you have not even understood. So that's the thing. There was no goal. I was way deep in it, and then suddenly you sit and realize, why am I so deep in it? And then you again answer like, okay, it's because you probably love it so much. And then after a certain point, you have to take a call. What do you want to do? So I think that's how. So the transition was again very organic for me. I realized that I want to do this at least 2 years before putting down my papers. So then you start thinking financially. you start thinking of a lot of different kinds of things, which I started doing.
Yeah, I just want to come to this point in terms of financial freedom that you had, initially mentioned that you wanted financial freedom.
Yeah.
So, when you took up dancing, was financial freedom an option, or you had to like compromise on it?
So, this will go back to my childhood. From a very young age, I wanted freedom. It's not like I was not given. I have a very privileged upbringing, and I identify with it. I acknowledge it. My parents are very progressive. They have everything that I've wanted from a very young age. I wanted my own, like I wanted to build my life in my own terms, and again that kind of thought has been there because of the kind of family support I've had. I started earning again at a very young age. I was only 23 when I got my first job, and I had a very well-paying job. When I had to put down my papers and when I had to shift, I was already dancing. So I started teaching maybe in 2015, 2014, 2015. So I already had a little bit of experience. But of course, when I left my job, which was every month, you don't realize, when your salary gets credited every month. It's just, on time it comes. You don't think what that privilege is till you don't get it.
True.
Initially, it was difficult, but again, it was a tweaking of the mindset that I had to do, and I have the most supporting family. Like, I don't think I will be able to do 90% of the things that I'm doing if I didn't have, my family around me to support this. I think that is like, I think it makes up for everything. I would make it to 100%, not even 90%. So that support was there, and it took me a few years, and then I again got myself up. So my case, I would say, because a lot of things worked out. There were 500 things which didn't work out, but a lot of very important things worked out. Sometimes I think if I had a job and if I had to, if I did not come from a financial stable background, if I had to send my salary to my parents to take care of them or to my family to take care of them, I wouldn't be able to invest in my dance training. So I started working in 2012. I invested all my savings in my dance training, and dance training is mighty expensive.
Yeah.
It is very, very, very expensive. Nobody talks about it. People should talk about it.
Yes,
It is so
that's-
expensive to train, and like the funniest thing is you can train in this, you can spend all your money, and you still don't know whether you will be able to get that money back ever, right? So so my I was able to fund my own education because I had such a supportive system around me. So I think that's why probably I was able to do it. I know so many of my friends and colleagues who were not able to do this, and this is it's very hard. It's very, very, very hard.
Yeah, I think right now, money, it all depends on your goal. Like, money becomes your goal, like, we go behind it. Then we also forget about the art, like what. So that, I think there's always that
Yeah, but I was
constant.
I come in a middle class family. This is what was told, and I think it's completely true. I've heard this growing up. What are you going to do becoming a singer and a dancer? Who's going to pay your rent? It is true. Who is going to pay your rent?
Yeah.
Right? And then when you have to, when your bills are paying up, the love for art just goes out of the window.
considering dancers even today are underpaid.
We are the least paid in the entire industry.
Yeah.
We are the least paid, and in fact, we need the most resources. Training, taking up dancing is so expensive. Injuries, sessions of physiotherapy, so expensive. Access to a good space to dance in, right? Soft floors. You hardly have good studios, which are beneficial for your knees, for your spine, for everything. So, in fact, we are the ones, we need the max resource. We are the least paid.
Yeah.
It is such a contradiction, right? And so see, that's the thing, right? You need the resource to fund the education. You're not getting any younger. It's just it's very difficult. And on top of that, if you don't have support, it's just mighty difficult, I would say. And everybody is doing what they have to do to figure it out. So I just feel like, yeah, if you think making reels, making content, that's what is giving you that freedom or that resource to actually put it back to what you really want to do, go ahead, do it. Yeah, because everybody, and I say this, like, that dancers, the pie that we have is so small, and everybody wants a bite of that pie. And it's not even like the pie is paying well.
Yeah.
It's not even like it's a super highly lucrative industry and you're earning so much. It's not even that. So you're fighting for little bits. It's
It can
disheartening.
get exhausting too
It's
at times.
very exhausting, very, very exhausting. And the monetary thing, I mean, we don't even count the things which you don't get paid for.
Yeah.
It's and after a point you just have to be like, yeah, maybe. So again, that's coming back to that. Like today, if I counted for everything that I should be paid for, I don't think I can do it. It's not possible. But again, that's the thing. I probably don't think like that, which is why I'm like, okay, I'm here to do what I'm here to do. But everybody has their own story, to be very honest. So they have their own story, they have their own path to build, and you do what you have to do.
Wow. I think, like I came with different set of questions, but our conversation was really like very insightful. I think this is something we had to talk about because there's something
absolutely.
nobody actually really talks about anywhere else, maybe even be it on social media. Because it's all like, oh yeah, I wear nice costumes, I dance, that's about it. Like nobody wants to really know what goes behind
My
it.
God, that costume costs you about 30,000 rupees, and you're like, really?
I know. Why does everything have to be expensive for us?
Yeah. And then you take a call that you don't wear a 30,000 rupees costume. Wear something that works for you, because the thing about Oriental dance is there are things that I like, there are things that I don't like. I think what we see in media, social media, or the dancers who we follow, the dancers who we like, that image in itself is very expensive, right? Is that what you have to do? Maybe not. This is what I don't think we go back and we ask. We don't need to get a costume which will light up 4 streets in Bangalore. We don't need to. We don't need that. I think the art is really beyond that costume. Yes, of course, I totally agree that, even in Indian classical, right, in Natya Shastra, we talk about aharya, like your get-up is very important. But expensive get-up is not equal to good get-up. I think this is sometimes we forget.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can wear what you want to wear and still light up.
The art will speak for itself.
And this, I believe in, because every time I travel to an international festival, I look around and then there's a little bit inside me that sings, because I'm like, oh my God, they are so pretty, they are so tall, look at their costumes. My 10,000 rupees costume will never match up to the starting range of 450 USD costume. But hey, you know what? I go up on stage and I know where I am. I'm going to wear my 5,000 rupees simple dress and I know what I can do there.
Wow.
And I think that's, it's so important to
Yeah.
have that, because yeah, it's not about that. And you know, once you actually get past that, you can actually see the art for the art.
Yeah. Wow. I think coming to the international event,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this. I'm so proud to say that your team represented India and won Talent of the Year at Cairo Budapest Festival. So, how was the experience like?
You know, festivals, I don't know where to start. I've had my fair share of experience at festivals, and I don't think, and I'm going to say this very openly, very transparent, I don't particularly think I like it. Having said that, it's a great space to network, it's a great space to see what's happening in your community, domestic, international, everywhere, what's happening. But I think we forget that this is the world. It's not. Oriental dance is, forget Oriental dance. Dance is so much more, and you can exist in this big world without representing yourself in a festival. So I'm going to first start with that remark, because I think a lot of young dancers, we feel we have to do this. You don't have to do it. You really don't have to do it. You don't have to go and do. And also, you want to learn. I don't think festivals is a place to learn.
Yeah,
It's
I
not.
truly
And I'm just
believe
going to
that.
say this very openly. I'm going to
Yeah.
be very transparent about it. It's not a place. You want to learn, identify the teacher you want to learn with, get behind him or her. If they are super famous, maybe they won't reply to you. Come to the next one, come to the next one. You will find your way. But going from festival to festival, I don't think is the way.
Yeah.
But maybe for some it is, because I've always said you do you. Having said that, I feel Cairo Mercedes' festival, Cairo Budapest, is one of the best in the world, and the experience is really, really good. I think she as an artist also gives you the freedom to be who you are.
Yeah, that I have seen in the
Yes,
festival.
so I think I was part of the festival back in 2019, and then I really liked the vibe of it. And then in 2023, I took my team there. Our only goal was to perform every night. This was the goal, because I was building a performance team. And again, my goal as a dancer, as a choreographer, as a teacher, as a mentor, I feel doesn't align with the quintessential goals that every Oriental dancer has. So I think for me, it was very important that I wanted to perform on all 4 days. So again, that particular year, she was building this opening day show, and you were just given a theme to do it, and we had just done like a huge piece on that theme. So we said that okay, we will put a 15-minute presentation on the
wow.
first day.
Okay.
So we did all of that. We sent videos, we got selected, all of that. Then the second day was the competition. Then the third day, I was also part of it was my first time I was working live with Nesma. I was performing with Nesma, and then the fourth day again we were doing something. So then I was like, okay, I'm sorted. We are performing on all 4 days. That was the goal. There was no other goal. Absolutely no other goal. And I think that kind of works. So the first day when we went, we put up a piece on grief. And I don't think people had seen something like that. And this year I went back as a faculty. There were people who came to me and spoke about our performance 2 years back.
Wow.
and people remember the Nritya Kosh company. And I think the first day that performance really left a mark in how people viewed us. I remember before that I was speaking to a few teachers and they said, "Oh, India, you guys are so good, but you guys are so good in doing fusion." And it kind of like, it pinches a little bit. And I said, "Yeah, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, we do what we do." Then they saw us doing this. And then the next day was the competition. We had, it was group competition. And I think there were so many categories, right? There's professional, there's amateur, there's group, there's this, there's that. And then there is the final talent of the year. Again, I had no idea about any of these things. I was like, okay, we'll go and do the group piece because we want to do the group piece. And it was an out and out Oriental piece. I love Ahavak. For the first time, I was creating Ahavak on few other dancers. And I used the same principles of designs on it. A very contemporary design, but still very rooted in Oriental. And yeah, they happen to love. I think it's a two-way thing. If they hadn't seen us the first day, maybe we wouldn't have won. I don't know. We keep thinking about it, but yeah, we happened to like, it was the first time a group was receiving the talent of the year. Like, it has never happened.
Wow.
And it was outstanding. The experience was I wanted to go home and sleep, because again, these competitions, they go on and on, and you're like, oh my god, this is now, my head is rolling and I don't even want to know. But then you don't want to know, but you want to know. You just don't know what you want to do, and you feel like, no, but I want to still see if we win. And then you want to go home and you want to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I think
How did your team take in?
Oh, they loved it. They loved it. They loved it because it was their first experience, and I think they also have kind of become like me. But again, they, like, for them, when we were going, the costume that we wore was very beautiful compared to all our previous costumes. But when this coming back to the costume thing, when we look and I remember one of my dancers saying, "We'll never look as glamorous as them." And then I said, "Yeah, I know, but it's okay." And then that night we won. So yeah, the experience was outstanding. But having said that, I'm again going to come back to that point. I never wanted to win, or I never wanted to compete, because I hate this idea of making art look like, I mean, it is like sports, but sports, there's an outcome to it. I don't think art has an outcome, right? And if 90% people are not mature enough to understand it, because I've gone through the same thing. In 3 minutes, you're supposed to put out your best thing. Now I think about it, I take 3 minutes to enter the stage.
Yeah.
I mean, dancers have made a living out of it, and that's great. It's amazing. But I know it's not for me. It's really not for me.
Yeah.
I want to sit down in peace. I want to make my art, and even if there are 5 people, I will present it to the 5 people. Yeah,
I think it's maybe the best of both the worlds. Like, you also get to experience, maybe just go and experience how it feels.
Experience, exactly.
Yeah. But then that's how you will know what you want.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, again, I think before the pandemic, there were so many. I think my first competition was at Hypnosis. This was Payal Gupta's event. And Aziza had come, Azad Khan had come, and I had prepared, and I had just gotten back from training with Hussam Ramzi and Sarina Ramzi, and then I prepared a Belody piece, and then whatever, I didn't win, done. But then at that point of time, I was very young, and I felt like, why didn't I win? Got it, fine, let go of it. Then I started traveling, and then I think a few years I went to New York, Cairo, and I again competed. And then of course nothing happened over there. And then you keep thinking about it, and also this feedback that you get is no shade. There are some who are very good. You know why I'm saying this? Because I've been on the other side. Like this year I was judging Cairo Budapest Festival. It's very difficult to write down feedback because performances are happening one after the other after the other.
Yeah.
You don't get a break. You have to like scribble something, and then when you're really into a performance, because this has legit happened to me, and I was judging the creative round. So all the dancers, it was not just technique or dancing to a song. There's like a story behind it. Once you're really into it, and then coming out and going back, if you're a trained judge, I think you need training as a judge. No, I'm serious. You need to be trained to how to judge so many performances at at such a short
and
span.
for so many hours.
And for so many hours. Oh my goodness, yes. So as a dancer, you are placing your worth of those 3 minutes on somebody who has seen 300 performances and has given you a feedback, and you have taken it on yourself like, oh my god, I have to do so many things. But I don't think that's how it works. It can't work like that. It absolutely can't.
And I think also in the competitions, like you need to be the best, like whatever, like my spins, my this. And I feel like there's no artistic freedom, like you mentioned.
Yeah. That's what I said, 3 minutes. I will take 3 minutes to enter the stage. I will take 3 minutes to walk from center stage to dance stage, say hi to my audience. I don't know, it's all about going into fast, ye karo, wo karo, do this, do that. But take your time to get up, take your time to say hi, take your time to say thank you for coming, take your time to say I'm going to present something that will blow your mind. It's so important.
That's so refreshing to hear, because from where I come from, I've always been like, okay, I need to put this, my entrance should be just like 30 seconds, no, otherwise I'll bore the audience, that kind of notion I've always had. But it's so refreshing to hear from the teacher to take
bore
time.
The audience. Sometimes I think, so this is also for people who are listening. You make for yourself. Because if you start thinking whether my audience will like it, and this is something that my dancers ask me repeatedly, how much is audience consideration? I will say negative. Because I want to create it. You are consuming it. If you don't want to consume it, don't come for my next show. It's fine. But I'm not going to make it for you. I'm making it for myself. Because, and now that I've made so many of these, I know, I'm 100% sure what I want to say, not very unique at all. What I want to say, there are 100 people out there who want to say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's nothing unique. I just have an opportunity and a privilege to actually say it. So, yeah, if you think it's boring, don't come. Go somewhere else. Some 5 other people will come. So I think that's the thing. Nobody told us these things, right?
Yes.
And we are growing up at a space where you think this is what people need, but no, people don't need that. And if that's what people need, I think people need very different things. That's what the world of dancing is so big that everybody can coexist. You can coexist making a 5-second reel and go completely viral. You can coexist by just coming on stage and sitting for 5 hours, and they are part of the same universe, and both can coexist together. There will be audience for both. I'm hoping there are more audience for this. But that's the thing. It's art is that. No, art is here.
Yeah. Devapriya, I mean, it was so profound, and it was also, to be very honest, it was very healing, you know, to really understand a different perspective coming from an artist, an instructor, a judge, an international judge, having represented India. So what you mentioned, Devapriya, that it was very healing to know that, you know, dance should be for you, because at least for me, I was conditioned that, you know, like you always need to think about the audience. Oh, maybe they'll get bored if you keep repeating the same movements. And also, it's also come from social media, because I've also been in that space where I have to always come up with something new. If I'm only just doing a figure of eight, people will get bored with it, you know.
Yeah.
But when you mentioned that ultimately the dance should be for you, you know, and people will find you, like whoever can resonate with your dance, they will always come to you. We would like to know about your upcoming shows and classes that you can share, and how one can reach out to you, you know, on social media or online. So we will also be putting the links in the description. You can check out Nritya Kosh's work and their upcoming classes and production as well. So Devapriya, please go ahead.
I run a school called Nritya Kosh, and we have centers all over Bangalore. There is beginner, intermediate, advanced classes. You can actually visit our website to know more about it. And about shows, yes, I do. My primary motive as a dancer and a choreographer is to tell stories. So every year I make productions, small, big, abstract, narrative, theatrical. It really depends on the subject. I'm actually doing a new work this year, and that's going to be premiering on 23rd of November at Bangalore International Centre. The production is called To Burn to Bloom, A Breath, a Body and the Beloved. The production is about a search, a discovery, and finding enlightenment. It's super. When I say finding enlightenment, it's not really like, you know, Buddha enlightenment or that, but it's just as human beings, we look for something, and as we're looking for something, you discover a lot of other things, and then you kind of start answering the questions that were always there, and then the newer questions start. It's based on the Seven Valleys. It's a book called The Conference of Birds by Fariduddin Attar, and it's a Sufi mystical concept where there's a group of birds who are finding their divine lord, who can unify them, and, you know, who can take them to their ultimate goal. And as they do this, they go through seven valleys. They go through Valley of Quest, Valley of Love, Valley of Knowledge, Valley of Unity, Bewilderment. So it's based on that, and I've also attached the 7 stages of love to it. So, yeah, the production is about that. And there's another part. This is the first time I'm working completely on Kulthum's music. So the entire production is on the legendary singer's music. We explore various emotions and various stages of our life through her songs. And it is also the 50th death anniversary of Kulthum.
Okay.
And I've had the opportunity to be a part of 2 major productions this year, which is a tribute to her life. And I think, I'm not entirely sure, but I think we are the first company in India to have a tribute for her this year.
Definitely, yes.
And yeah, so there are a lot of things in the production. We're working super hard to bring classical Arabic music, Kulthum's music here, and her iconic songs up there on stage with our interpretation. It is Oriental out and out. but of course, it has my way of understanding what art is, what movement is, and then there is, of course, storytelling.
Wow, wow,
Yes.
I'm already looking forward. Like I could never be a part of your show, but I will definitely save
Please
the
do
date and
come.
I'll look forward to your production.
Yes.
It already feels like such a fine. It's gonna be amazing,
Thank
fine
you.
production.
Thank
so
you.
congratulations on
Thank
that,
you.
and thank you so much for your immense contribution
Thank
in
you.
our dance community. I think
Thank
it's like beautiful that what you're doing.
Thank you.
you
Thank you
know,
so much.
being so unique and just also putting in the efforts to educate the audience in our country. So thank you for
Thank you
that.
so much. Means a lot. Thank you. It was wonderful speaking to you today, and I think this is such a great space
Yes,
that you
I
have
will really be
initiated.
looking forward to another conversation because we
Me
are not
too.
done yet.
Me too.
So thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
gracing
Thank
us
you.
today. Thanks for tuning into Dancing Dialogues with Nikita Krishnan. I truly hope that this episode was educational, inspirational, and you could take something out of it. If you loved the episode, don't forget to share and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Until then, keep dancing and stay inspired.